Quick lessons from books. Let's talk about immigration. This lesson will be based on Michael Lynn's The New Class War. Please subscribe, share, like the videos, leave a comment. I try to respond to all the comments. When we talk about immigration, rule number one, don't be racist. Rule number two, if someone has a view that's different than yours when it comes to immigration, don't just call them a racist. Listen to their points of view. So don't be racist and don't falsely label someone racist because they have different views than you. And I expect someone's going to watch this video and label me a racist. So to get out ahead of it, let me just give you my plan, which you don't have to listen to and you don't have to care about. It's one, that undocumented immigrants should have full rights. Two, undocumented immigrants should not pay taxes. Also, all Americans should also not have to pay taxes as well. And number three, undocumented immigrants should have few to no entitlements, and that benefit should be taken away from all Americans as well. And so there it is. That's my plan. I'm open to changing my mind, but if your thought is, well, I think we should have a welfare state and open borders, that's never going to work. It hasn't worked. It's been a disaster. So we're going to be adults here and not be children and have real conversations. So if your plan of changing my mind is that, well, we'll just go to 1 Corinthians. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. So you need to put away that childish idea. We need to be a serious country. Welfare state, open borders doesn't work, hasn't worked. We tried it. It failed miserably. It continues to fail miserably. So let's put away the childish things and have some real adult conversations about building a better immigration system. So let's get back to the book, New Class War. We'll start with the 1995 Jordan Commission. So what did this government commission decide in terms of immigration? The commission finds no national interest in continuing to import lesser skilled and unskilled workers to compete in the most vulnerable parts of our labor force. To make sense about the national interest in immigration, it is necessary to make distinctions between those who obey the law and those who violate it. Who are these bigots? Who are these racists? Therefore, we disagree also with those who label our efforts to control illegal immigration as somehow inherently anti-immigration. Unlawful immigration is unacceptable. This is the Jordan Commission, 1995. They're clearly undocumented immigration or illegal immigration. They believe that this hurts the vulnerable sectors of the economy, mainly the low-skilled labor force, are going to be damaged. They're going to be punished. They're going to be harmed by undocumented immigration. And therefore, the Jordan Commission says we've got to do something about it. So who are these bigots? Who are these supposed racists, right? Imagine you're thinking of the people today who would be against immigration and who would stand up for low-skilled workers. Well, it was Barbara Jordan, civil rights leader, first African-American woman from the South to be elected to Congress, Democrat. She was the head of the Jordan Commission. And if you go back to the 90s, the Democrats once were the party of the working people. They used to be the party of the blue-collar workers, the low-skilled workers, the farmers, etc. That's no longer the case. So if we go back then, when Barbara Jordan and her commission came to this decision, she was representing low-skilled workers. She was representing factory workers. She was representing union workers. That's what the Democrats used to do. And the Republicans used to be the country club, rich, elite, professional class, college degree protected. That was their category. Today, there's been a realignment. The parties have switched. Some people recognize this. Some people just have not recognized this. Some people refuse to recognize this, but it has happened. The Democrats today are the country club liberals. They're the elite. They represent the professional class. They represent the degreed protected class. Whereas the Republicans now represent the former or current industry workers, the union workers, the blue-collar workers, the low-skilled workers in that vulnerable sector of the economy that Barbara Jordan was trying to protect. You can read or listen to the Realignment podcast and hear more about this switch and this changing of political parties. Continuing on, this is from Michael Lynn's book, but continuing the theme of what Barbara Jordan was talking about, and that this isn't about race. This is not about racism. Don't let people tell you the core part of immigration policy is about racism. Some people are racist, sure, but at the heart of the issue in terms of undocumented immigration, it's economics. 27 countries were studied, US, Canada, Western European countries. Only 14% of the people in the study or in the survey wanted more immigration. 53% of Latinos favored deporting anyone who crossed the border illegally. 70% of Latinos favor more restrictive immigration laws. It's not about race. It's not about racism. It's about economics, providing for your family, taking care of vulnerable sectors of the economy, taking care of vulnerable workers, low-skill workers, protecting them, giving them a fair chance, helping them out. It is not about racism, clearly, when Latinos favor stronger immigration policies. Unless you want to tell me that Barbara Jordan, civil rights leader, first African American from the South, elected to Congress, oh, she's a racist? You think she just hated people from other countries? She's a xenophobe? She's racist towards Hispanics? I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second. I don't believe that she's racist. I believe that Barbara Jordan understood undocumented immigration and that the issue was about class. The issue was about economics. The issue was about protecting vulnerable workers with families, with vulnerable children that need to have a fair opportunity to function in our economy and in our society, and they should not be cheated. It has nothing to do about race. Sure, there will be racists out there, but that is not what this issue is about. Unless, of course, you believe that Barbara Jordan's a racist. I don't. Unless, of course, you think that Latinos are racist. I don't. The facts simply say that this is about class. So there's a great South Park episode where instead of people coming across the border illegally and taking jobs, or gerbs, as they say in the episode, people come from the future where the economy has collapsed and they time travel back to the past to get work, which, although it sounds like science fiction, it sounds like fantasy, it's starting to seem more like a reality every day. But, it's an allusion to our current immigration problem. It's a great episode. And when we look at kind of the two factions and the disagreement over immigration, we can see that the populace, and you can use whatever word you want to use here, but working class Americans, the non-college degree Americans, that vulnerable class that Barbara Jordan was defending in 1995, those vulnerable, low-skilled workers that now have to compete with undocumented immigrants. There's that group, and then there's the other group, which would be your neoliberals, the professional class Americans, protected by their college degree, that do not have to compete with immigrants coming across the border or immigrants coming from the future. So those are really the two parties. I know it's an overgeneralization, but you're going to have a lot of overgeneralizations when we take a very complex system. We can't go into every single part of immigration and undocumented immigration in one quick video. But what we can try to do is take a part of this complex system and at least understand that. And then you can build on from there and understand more of the complex parts. But you got to start somewhere. And so we're going to take more of a supply side approach to understanding one of the key issues in undocumented immigration and how that affects the vulnerable, low skilled class. So again, it's about class. And when we bring in immigrants from the future, this is in South Park, or from across the border, what class do they fill in? What types of jobs do they compete for? They compete for low-skilled jobs on the lowest of the socioeconomic scale. They do not compete with your middle-income, college-degreed, professional class. Those workers, those families, those individuals, who tend to be the neoliberals, are unaffected. Well, actually, they are affected, but it's beneficial. They are not harmed. They receive benefits. They are rewarded. Whereas low-income, low-skilled workers are damaged and are punished, are made more vulnerable, as the Jordan Commission has said. And you look, obviously, the highest skill, there's no change in the amount of supply of competition of work. There's a bunch of different things that we can look at, but if we're simply just looking at supply of workers, the workers that are coming into the country, the influx of workers, they're not thousands of doctors, it's not thousands of lawyers, it's not thousands of nurses, it's not thousands of teachers, it's not thousands of college professors, it's not thousands of the managerial elite, it's not thousands of PR marketers. I mean, I can go on and on. It's thousands of low-skilled labor. We are increasing the supply there. We are not affecting the supply of middle to upper income labor. So as we know in economics, as we increase supply, we're going to drop price. We haven't affected these upper tiers, but we definitely have affected the vulnerable population, the low-skilled workers. We've increased the supply of low-skilled workers, so the value of a low-skilled worker decreases. Their price drops. Their wages will plummet. And here's a perfect example. If the boss has 3 people to choose from, a bidding war will take place, and the boss is going to hire, if all things being equal, their skills are the same, he's going to hire the worker who's willing to work for the lowest wage. And so now we have set the wage at $10. Well, now if we increase the supply of low-skilled labor, now that we've increased the supply, what happens to price? We have, again, our bidding takes place. The employer or the boss has more people to choose from, more selections to go through to find the best possible selection, maybe the best possible price. And now we'll see that, $7 for a low-skilled labor, I'll take that. Now, maybe this low-skilled laborer has even fewer skills, mainly not speaking English, but the amount that they will save, the boss can possibly make up for that. And so now we have driven the price down. This doesn't affect the neoliberals and the professional class protected by their degree. It doesn't impact the managerial elite. They're not competing. There's no one driving their wages down. But your low skill industry, delivery, grocery store, fast food, as you increase the supply, the boss now has more people to choose from. There's more bidding that takes place, and he's able to hire with the lowest possible wage. It's simple economics. So from that perspective, we see what Barbara Jordan was talking about in 1995, and that hasn't changed since. That's still a major issue today. Now, another reason why neoliberals like this plan, not only do they not have to deal with competition driving their prices down, but they also get cheaper goods because now the boss can produce goods or services at a lower cost. His labor costs have shrunk. It's now decrease the money he has to put into building a product. That means he can lower the price of his product, his cell phone or whatever he's producing. And that means the neoliberals now can get cheaper goods because of this policy. So A, the neoliberals don't have an added increase in competition driving their wages down. And also the neoliberals benefit from cheaper goods. So of course, neoliberals support undocumented immigrants. This system favors them. This system benefits them. Whereas the majority of Americans, the low-skilled labor, the non-college degree Americans, they're losing their jobs or they're having their wages driven down because of undocumented immigrants, and it's just simply supply. Supply has gone up, the price has gone down. This isn't a magical phenomenon. This isn't some sort of mysterious situation that is plaguing our country. It's simply if you add more low-skilled labor, then the current low-skilled labor in the country will have their wages driven down. Barbara Jordan and the Democrats all agreed on this. And then I guess they just decided to turn their back as the realignment happened, and now the Democrats will not admit what they already knew. And the funny thing is the Republicans refused to admit this, and now they all have embraced it. Either way, if the Democrats used to believe it, then it probably exists. If the Republicans now believe it, then it probably exists. If both of these parties at one point in time agree that it exists, then yes, this is a problem. This is an issue. So we increase the supply of undocumented immigrants, and we can add another layer to this. So the only option then for the American worker, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, the American worker is to accept the $7 wages. Well, then you factor in the taxes that you pay. That's $5 an hour. Impossible to support a family on $5 an hour. Impossible to support yourself on $5 an hour. And some people will point to that 50, and you can look this up in the Forbes article, 50% of undocumented immigrants do not pay income tax. Do they pay property tax? Yes, but so do Americans. They pay sales tax. Yeah, but so does everybody else. But 50% of undocumented immigrants do not pay income tax. That is a huge benefit to be able to keep your entire $7. And you can look that up on Forbes. You got to dig pretty hard because Google has tried to suppress that type of information as much as they can. But that's millions and millions of undocumented immigrants that are not paying an income tax. And that gives them a competitive advantage over the American worker. So the neoliberals are getting benefits. And the low-skilled labor of America is just getting hurt at every single turn. They're not getting any benefits. Benefits are being given to undocumented immigrants by allowing half of them not to pay income tax. Now, if you want to argue that, well, half of them do pay income tax. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe you should protect them as well. $5 an hour for an undocumented immigrant, that's pretty brutal as well. Why are you taxing the undocumented immigrant? Why are we taxing any of these people? If you really want to think about it, why? Why are we trying to make it hard for the most vulnerable? These low-skilled Americans are in a tough spot. Immigrants coming into our country, taking low-skilled jobs that don't speak a lot of English, they're in a tough spot. They have families that are in tough spots. So why is the United States government making it tough on low-skilled labor? Why is the United States government then making tough on 50% of Hispanic undocumented immigrants? Why are they punishing them? Why the neoliberals are getting cheaper goods and not being forced to compete? Does this make any sense to you whatsoever? Why not get rid of taxes for all of them? 50% aren't paying taxes. How about, like I said at the beginning of the video, why tax the undocumented immigrants at all? Why tax the low-income Americans at all? Why not at least let them keep their $7 an hour? You got to take out of there. They're making $7 an hour, and you think it's necessary? You think it's prudent to take money from them? So let's get rid of the taxes. And let's just look at the Revenue Act of 1913. So when we instituted an income tax, let's look at the creation, the origination of these laws. What was the original intent of this law? An income tax. We're not talking about sales tax. We're not talking about property taxes, Social Security taxes, Medicare tax. We're simply talking about the tax of all taxes, which is the federal income tax. And when that tax went through in 1913, it said that if you made about $3,000 a year, you paid a 1% tax. 1%. Now, what was $3,000 then? What is, if we look at inflation, we can find out what did they exactly mean. And what they exactly meant was if you made over $78,000, you paid a 1% tax. That was the original intent of the income tax, was that if you made more than $78,000 a year, you paid 1%. If you made less than $78,427.58, you didn't need to pay taxes. You don't need to pay a federal income tax if you didn't make this. So, hey, how about we just restore the original intent of the Revenue Act of 1913, which would set up the income tax amendment, and say, if you make less than that, no taxes, which would be all low-skilled labor, which would be all low-skilled undocumented labor. Under $78,000, you no longer need to pay taxes. Of course, you have to dial back in entitlements, but it can work out. It can make sense. You do this, and low-skilled labor can make it work. Low-skilled labor, because think about this. The original, before we brought in undocumented workers, if you remember the very first graphic where I showed you the three Americans competing against each other and it worked out to $10 an hour, if you get $10 an hour and you take out the taxes, you know how much you're left with? $7 an hour. The low-skilled laborers can make this work. They can work in this system. And if they see the system's more fair, and if they can work and survive in this system, this animosity, this acrimony, this anger, this rage, this whole thing that's been happening over immigration and undocumented, it's going to go away. People will dial it down. They're not going to worry about it so much anymore. They're not going to believe that the government is cheating them. They're not going to believe that the United States government is rigging the deck against them. They're no longer going to believe that the United States government is in bed with the neoliberals and helping them. They're going to start to realize, okay, they're giving me my chance. They're giving me an opportunity. Now, you're not going to completely wipe away racism. You're not going to get rid of all the problems, but you're going to dial down the heat in a time where we absolutely need to turn down the volume, turn down the heat. All you simply have to do is get rid of the taxes and you'll turn it down. Right now, we have a system that simply benefits the upper middle class and the upper class, the neoliberals. That is our immigration policy. That's what we have. All we need to do is stop taxing low-skilled labor. Stop taxing low-skilled labor, undocumented labor, under $78,000. That's all we're asking. We're saying, hey, we've got a system that clearly benefits this group and discriminates, punishes, is punitive towards low-skilled labor. Why not we make one change, don't tax them, and then everyone gets a piece of the pie. Everyone can survive. Everyone has a place in this society. Everyone will be treated fairly. Everyone will be treated equally. Low-skilled, low-skilled, undocumented, the neoliberals in the middle, and the upper class. We just create a more fair and just society by simply recognizing the problem of supply and making one little twitch. Stop taxing these low-skilled labor. Now, unfortunately, the government's solution is going to be, well, we'll just, we can fix, wages are being driven down by supply. So what we're going to do is rewrite the rules of economics. You can't rewrite the rules of economics. These are laws. You cannot reverse gravity. But we can overcome it. But it doesn't make gravity not exist. It still is there. So what we have is minimum wage will be the answer. Well, wages are being driven down. So what they do is they'll institute a $15 minimum wage. Okay, well, the American worker, low-skilled worker, will get the job in that case because of his English fluency. It's not going to make sense to pay $15 an hour for $7 an hour labor. Businesses aren't going to do it. What's going to happen is you've now taken away these undocumented immigrants compensating differences. They were able to overcome lack of skills, meaning their fluency in English, by accepting lower wages. That's how they compensated for their weakness. They are from another country. Obviously, they don't speak as fluent English, but for them to be able to compete with low-skilled labor, for them to be able to get the job, they said, hey, we'll work for less money. That's how they were able to compete. That's how they were able to make things even. By instituting a minimum wage, the government now has taken those compensating differences, has taken away that tool from the toolbox of undocumented immigrants. So now you're punishing the undocumented immigrants. So you want to do a minimum wage? All right, well, you are going to directly impact undocumented immigrants. And I mean, if you want to go, well, that's racist, fine. I don't think it's racist. I think it's just misguided and someone not understanding economics. I don't think they're doing this intentionally to hurt Hispanic or undocumented immigrants, but they are hurting undocumented immigrants. Undocumented immigrants will have a tough time finding a job when you force a mandatory minimum wage because no one pays $15 an hour for $7 an hour labor. It just doesn't happen. So what would happen is these undocumented immigrants are going to come into the country and now not have any work whatsoever. And that's a disaster. And that will happen if this is done. So we could probably avert that tragedy by not following the minimum wage and just doing the tax thing. Now, some liberals or neoliberals or progressives who just love taxes and love redistribution, they can't face it. Okay, I got another plan for you. I get it. It's too scary to get rid of taxes. It's fine. Follow along. You don't want to not tax these low-skilled laborers for whatever reason. Well, guess what? So my plan is just let them keep their entire paycheck. It's $2 out of the $7 an hour. It's really not a huge thing. Well, you know what is the exact same thing? You know what is a very similar policy, which you already likely embrace, progressive, which you already very likely embrace, leftist, is UBI. I mean, it's the same thing. There's no difference. My plan, I let them keep the money. Your plan, you take the money away from them and then you just send the money right back to them in the form of a UBI check. So I think mine's more efficient. You can shut down the IRS. You can shut down a lot of government agencies. You can save a lot of money by just not taxing them. But either way, the end result is the same. I want to help low-skilled and undocumented workers by just allowing them all to keep their money. You want to take it away from them and then send it back to them so you can make sure that you sign your name to them so they know that it's the check from you and that you're their savior and then that you're a good guy. That's fine. If you want to pretend to be their savior because you took their money and then gave it back to them via check, whatever, that's fine. But it's the same thing. Either way, I hope we agree that we need to protect or help or assist or at least create a fair society for low-skilled, vulnerable workers, low-skilled, undocumented workers. You shouldn't be taxing them. You shouldn't take advantage of them. We shouldn't create a system that unfairly benefits the neoliberals. Now, the neoliberals are going to say, well, we can't get rid of our neoliberal trade policies. Everything's going to, the price of goods is going to go up, right? If we stop, and the fear of the neoliberals is that if we no longer have cheap labor flooding into the country, if we no longer are buying cheap goods from cheap labor in foreign countries, right? So they're afraid the price of goods will go up because we no longer have cheap labor in America producing goods. That drives price up. And we're also, if we're buying goods from other countries where labor prices go up, then everything's going to be expensive, mainly China. Well, that's not really the case, neoliberal. Here's the facts. Due to Chinese imports, average prices are 1% to 1.5% lower. Think about that. And then when you really start to think, this number's probably shocking because you've been told that cheap labor from immigrants or cheap labor in Mexico or mainly cheap labor in China has produced cheap goods, and that's why we can get everything for so cheap in America, and it's been so great. The fact is, the average price of goods, 1% to 1.5% lower. This is from Michael Lynn's book, The New Class War. And the more you think about it, you'll realize, wait a second, you know what? My life isn't really that great since we started making everything in countries with cheap labor. I'm not living, are you living the life of luxury? Right? Do you have like 15 computer screens in front of you? How many cars do you have in your garage? Do you even have a garage? You got TVs, like 5 TVs in your bathroom? Do you have a sneaker wall with all of the nicest sneakers that you've never even put on? Are you covered in gold chains? Are you able to buy all of this stuff because it's cheap? The reality is, no, you're not living a luxurious life. This Chinese import process has not benefited you. You have not become rich. You're not living a life of luxury. Right? We keep being told by the neoliberals that everything's cheaper now. Well, if everything is cheaper now, then how come I don't have a lot of money? How come I don't have a lot of things? How come I don't have a lot of money saved up? It doesn't make any sense. If our lives have been exponentially made better, as we have been led to believe by the neoliberals when it comes to our trade policy, where are the benefits? I don't see it. You don't see it. Where is it? It's because 1 to 1.5%. Let's look at it even further. If you made the iPhone in America, oh my God, you can't make an iPhone in America. You know how expensive that thing would be? Yes, I actually do. They studied this. This is in his book. It'd be 5% more expensive. So that $400 SE phone, it's $420. You can't spend $20 more to produce goods in America made by American labor, made by that vulnerable, low-skilled working class. You can't pay 5% more for a phone made by Americans. How much of a neoliberal are you? If you're not a neoliberal, your answer is, oh yeah, I'll pay more for the phone. I'll pay more to create American jobs. I'll pay more to help out low-skilled labor. I'll pay more to help out undocumented immigrants in this country. I'll pay more to strengthen the American economy. Who says they can't do this? Who looks at these numbers and can support these neoliberal trade policies? The benefits of neoliberal trade have been greatly exaggerated. You have been lied to. We can create a society where we make things in America that benefit American low-skilled labor and also have plenty of room for undocumented immigrants as well. You can find more about this in The New Class War by Michael Lynn. Hopefully, I've given you some ideas. Maybe I'll change my mind about immigration. Again, I'm honestly open to it with reasonable, realistic, and rational answers. So leave the comments and I will respond to your comments. I don't have all the answers. I'm just telling you mainly some of the stuff that came from Michael Lynn. Subscribe, share, leave a comment. Thanks for being with me. Hopefully I've opened some eyes about immigration, maybe even my own.